Well, thanks a lot, Phil. So as Phil just said, my name is Terri, and I am with John Wiley and Sons in our journals division. And we publish about 1,600 journals across a whole range of disciplines around the world. And when I was asked to do this, I think that my role was going to be kind of setting the stage for, from our perspective, why altmetrics are interesting to us as a publisher and what we're sort of how we got involved in using them and what we how we think we're going to kind of continue to use them and how they'll continue to impact our business. So one of my co-panelists just gave me a little bit of a hard time about our corporate slide. So this is our corporate branding. I just made use of it because it was easier. As a journals publisher, and we obviously also publish, books and reference works, we have a number of different constituents. We have librarians who want ease of access, they want quality, they want good value for money. We have society partners who want broad reach and dissemination for their publications. They want good experience for their authors, and they also want to know that their research makes an impact. We have institutional funders and various other kinds of funding bodies who, again, want to know that their authors are following the rules around their publications, but also that the research that they're funding is making an impact. And finally, we have authors themselves who want, again, they want a good quality experience, they want speed, they want quality, but they also want to know that the work that they're doing is not only reaching the people in their own field who need that or are interested in that work, but then potentially broadening that and really making sure that their work is impacting on the world in some kind of way. So I've worked in journals publishing for about 17 years, and for the first 10 years, we measured, just as measured impact by citations. And my specialty was in the social sciences, and it was always really difficult talking with my society clients about the impact factor. A 2-year window for a social science article, what do you mean? Like, that's ridiculous. And so, we always had to say, well, librarians care about that, and so people would ask, what about the 5-year impact factor? Well, ours built to show 2 different impact factors in any way. Everybody uses the 2 years as standard. So for me personally, in the work that I was doing, I felt when the altmetrics conversation started, I thought, oh, this is really interesting, and it's going to make a big impact on my work. I also thought, another brilliant idea that I didn't come up with. That's unfortunate because it's a really good one. So that's kind of like the stage for setting the stage for Wiley, and also for me personally as a publisher. And I know you represent all different kinds of areas in all different disciplines. So moving forward of probably 3 years from when altmetrics first started to be discussed, we decided that we would kind of make our first formal foray into it, and we did a pilot with Altmetric, the company, the London-based company. And we picked 6 journals, so it was a pretty small pilot, but in our big discipline, so in chemistry and molecular biology, and we decided we would just start displaying altmetric badges on those articles in those journals. And again, it was a very small pilot, and it was but it was our first opportunity to really look at it in a kind of a quasi-scientific way, and we were really pleased with the results. So I thought what I would do today is just walk you through those results. And again, they're 2 years old. It was from a pilot, but then sort of talk about what that caused us to do and the kinds of tools and resources that we've developed around altmetric badges. And I'm only really going to talk about altmetric. I know that there are lots of different kinds of alternative metrics. So when we did the pilot, we surveyed researchers who came to those articles, and it was a self-selecting survey, and we just asked people to answer a few questions, and we were really pleased. So again, this is in 2013. So the people who responded to that online survey, 65% of them said that the metrics were useful to them. Again, this is the first time we had displayed a metric other than an impact factor. And 26% said, well, they're somewhat useful. Maybe I don't really know what they are yet, but they're somewhat useful to me. And only 9% said, no, these aren't useful. second question, well, I'm not sure if these are in the right order, but another question we asked was, as a reader, do you think article metrics enhance the value of the journal article? And 77% of people said they either agreed or strongly agreed with that sentiment. And again, that was, I don't know if it was shocking to us, but it was really pleasing. We were pleasantly surprised by that. And again, fewer than 15% of people strongly disagreed, and so about fewer than 25 disagreed or strongly disagreed. And again, I think at this point when we were asking this question, some of that may have been because people didn't really know what this is, and the numbers might have changed one way or the other if we asked these questions again. We asked, would you be more likely to submit a paper to a journal that supplies article level metrics of this type? And again, just almost exactly 50% agreed or strongly agreed. Can you hear me? Because all of a sudden I feel like the microphone's working. Okay. And then only 17% disagreed or strongly disagreed. So this is kind of a whistle-stop tour of the really kind of small survey that we did. We asked people what the most useful metrics were to them, and again, this was early, but what they told us at that time was mentions in traditional news outlets were what were most interesting to them, and I think that kind of stood to reason for us at that time because we had talked for a long time with our authors, our society partners, our clients about how do you know whether your work is getting into the right hands, and they would ask us about policymakers. People in government, they would ask us about, research funders. How do we know that they're seeing this? How do we know that the work is making a difference? And this was the first time we'd ever really been able to demonstrate to them that it was. So that was those were the results of our survey. So that was sort of the last question that I wanted to talk about. The result of this was that we were obviously it was a small survey, but we were really pleased. And so in July 2014, we started displaying altmetric badges on all of our articles, and we made the decision that because relatively few articles actually have a score. Or relatively few of our articles have a score. Rather than showing a 0, we would show nothing. We would just have the circles, and then we would only display a score if it actually has a score. And that was, I'm sure there would probably be various opinions about that around the room, but I think as a client manager, I was happy not to have to explain to clients why nobody was tweeting about their article. So and this is just sort of, again, this is our internal. This is our sort of, our way of displaying, talking to our clients about what altmetrics or what altmetric does, and this already. So we don't have that many articles with 907 scores of 907. And so what this kind of led us to was developing a whole suite of services and sort of learning opportunities and ways in which our authors of all different types can kind of beef up their skills around self-promotion and around making sure that their articles are gaining traction in the wider world. And I'm going to just run you through just a quick sort of I'll run down a number of those initiatives, but before I do that, I'll just tell you that we're doing a kind of a series of ongoing surveys of our authors, and our most recent one told us that 59% of our authors now believe that they are the primary person. They have the primary responsibility for publicizing their work. And I don't think that makes us obsolete as publishers. I think it helps focus us a little bit on what we need to be doing in the journal marketing space, because what always kind of surprised me when I started working in it was we don't really market, you don't necessarily market a journal. You do, but the journal already, it has a brand. It's existed for a long time. What are you actually trying to do? And what you're trying to do is get people to read the content. So for me, it's actually a good thing. I think it's a good thing that authors kind of see themselves having some agency in this. Oops, I pressed the wrong thing. There we go. Okay. Ooh. Sorry. Okay, so we have a number of different sort of ways of communicating with our audiences, and this in these cases, in some of these cases, it's not just our own authors, but just sort of the wider community. And one of them is through Wiley Exchanges, which is our blog, and we're getting really that blog is really taking off for us, which is great. And this is just a kind of a smattering of some of the recent articles that we've run there. And this is not only about altmetric; this is about all different kinds of alternative metrics. So we've got, the H factor, the eigenfactor, understanding impact factors, because of course those are still important. So this is just going to give you a sense of the kinds of things that our clientele are asking about, and I'm sure this is, this is pretty similar to what you're hearing about probably too. We've also, as a result of the altmetric, of adding altmetric to our articles, we've also started to do a lot of other kinds of work around, helping authors to, to do their own kind of self-promotion. Kudos is one that we have a partnership with now. It allows, it gives authors a platform for kind of providing more context around their article. So that's one. Again, I'm going to go through quickly. Orchid, obviously. I mean, these are sort of slightly different angles on the same thing. We want people when they find you to know that it's you. We want you to be distinguishable from someone else with the same name. ReadCube, again. So this is where we have a couple of different parts to our partnership with ReadCube, but it's about not only about providing a more user-friendly PDF, but it's also about allowing people to interact a little bit more with the content, and ideally with the authors themselves. We've also created a self-promotion toolkit for authors, and there are links out to a number of the blog posts and other different kinds of materials, videos, etc. And in our author survey, I think this is the 2015 author survey, but I don't know, I'm looking at Bill DeLuise in the back. You might be able to tell me. Okay, so this is the recent author survey too, that 97% of authors are telling us that they're likely to use it. I don't have usage data about the toolkit, but 97% of people said that they're interested in it anyway. We have a social media blog series. So again, this is part of Exchanges. These are, I guess, some other examples of what we've done on Exchanges to try to get people thinking in this way. We have author blogs, so we have authors really talking about their own experiences of all different kinds of things, not just pushing their articles onto social media and encouraging that kind of encouraging alternative kinds of metrics, and but regular citations and all different all kinds of things that authors have done and can do to kind of self-promote. And that was my last slide. That probably didn't take 15 minutes, but I hope it was useful, and I think there will be time for questions at the end. Okay, if anyone has any questions about any of that. I hope it was useful. Okay, thanks. Oh, hi, sorry, yep. Well, I don't know what the percentages are. Is there anyone here who can tell me what percentage of articles overall? Julia, yeah. Okay, so thank you. Julia Bond's at our journals team in Malden. Don't steal her. She's great, but she just had the answer right at the tip of her tongue. Yeah, so I mean, I've moved in the last year from the client management side to a more internal kind of operations and communications role. So I haven't had the pleasure of having this conversation with authors, but I'm sure, I think for us, or my experience of publishing journals at Wiley, it's more about, for us, it's more about just showing willing, as my British colleagues say, that we're interested in this, and we're interested in helping people to create a more robust picture of their work. So I don't know. I'm sure someone else, will probably be able to answer that question. But I'd rather to have a talk about why there's nothing inside circle than why there's a 0 inside the circle. That's for sure. Oop, there's another question in the back. Oh, hi, Sarah. How are you? Yeah, I saw you on the TV. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Oh, it does. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't realize it was a question mark. I thought it was a 0. I don't want to talk about a question mark either. That would probably be even worse. Yeah, I mean, I think like all these things, it's a process. I mean, we've been publishing journals for 4 decades, and I had tons of clients who never understood the impact factor. I have colleagues who don't understand the impact factor. So I think and I mean, partly because it's not their job to do that, but I think it's, it's always important to contextualize things, and I think that's what some of this stuff that we're putting up for our authors and kind of pushing our authors to helps to do, because you can have a million conversations about why a 3 is okay if your paper is about 17th century whatever, but people have to get it in their heads. And we also have had major fails, like we had an article, but some of you have probably heard about, where authors left in a remark saying, should we cite the crappy X paper here? And that has our highest score. So anyway, yeah, you have to really contextualize it for people. Sorry, Sarah, I hope that wasn't a bad example to give. Okay, thanks a lot.